coffee crew. Welcome back, my beautiful besties. So, how are you actually doing this week? And I mean actually, not the polite version, not the I'm fine, everything's fine. Meanwhile, your eyes twitching and the house is on fire. Fill up your cup, grab your project if you have one, or your iPad game, whatever. Pull up a chair, take a breath, and chill with me a little bit today. A little bit of a personal update. I sign up for a 5K next month. I try to do one a year because I like having a yearly running goal. And this one particular race has donuts at the finish line. So I figured it was a win-win in my book. And then I told my husband there's a Bob Evans right down the road. We can hit that up for breakfast afterwards. I mean, I'm running for the donut. I have no shame in my game about that. But I also want some eggs and toast. I'll finish, and I will have deserved it. It doesn't matter if your motivator is a donut. What matters is that you cross the finish line. Well, that, and it better not be like a jelly donut, or I'll be adding a side of pancakes to my eggs. Now, last week we talked about being tired. You know, the kind of tired that doesn't have a dramatic cause. Just the daily weight of life grinding forward. Like, oh my God, how was it Christmas? Just recently I was, oh my God, how was it almost summer vacation? This week we're going to go a layer deeper because that's what we do here. We take big issues and break them into smaller pieces so it's a little bit easier to swallow. And let's be real. Sometimes it's not just that you're tired. Sometimes it's you have been strong for so long, for so many people, for so many things, that you just forgot that you are allowed to put something down. If one of the things adds to that, how the hell did we get here? And that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so there's the things that people can see. The job, the kids, the full calendar, the house that needs cleaning, the piles of laundry. When you're visibly busy, which, like we said last week, sometimes people don't notice, but then you point it out and they're like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. I see why you're a little tired. I see why you're stretched a little thin. But there's also a weight that nobody sees. The mental load, the planning, the remembering, the anticipating, the managing, all the open tabs mixing with the background noise of daily life. You know, you can be sitting completely still, staring into your coffee, looking like you're not doing anything. Meanwhile, inside your head, you're reviewing everybody's calendar, your daily to-do list, the bills, the budget, the dietary requirements of the picky eaters in your household, the medications. Do we have them? Do we need refills? When are we eligible for refills? Did they remember to take them? And then the appointments. The things people need to keep functioning in their daily lives that they don't always realize you're the one that handles those. You're the operating system that's running constantly, managing 50 apps in the background. Meanwhile, everyone else just uses the app and moves on with their day. And then you also have the emotional labor. You know, being the one who holds everyone else together. For me, this is especially true with my autistic son. For him, it's not just being emotionally present. It's also, I have to calibrate how I deliver every piece of information to him. Because I need to explain it in a way he understands. I need to do it in a way that's not going to overwhelm him and cause him to freeze or shut down. Or, when he was younger, he's gotten better, but having a grade A meltdown. So every conversation with him, when I have to give him information, gets processed through that filter before it leaves my mouth. And because I'm the one that's with him all day, and I've done it since he was little, it's become natural to me. So much so that there are times when my husband will come and get me if, my son did something that needs corrected because he doesn't want to cause the meltdown. And I'm better at getting that information across without one. There's times that he actually does it better, mainly because it's been all day and my son just needs to hear it from somebody else, I guess. But that's the invisible work that never stops. You can top that also with the caretaker identity. When being strong for others becomes so automatic that you stop noticing what it costs you. I've had my husband look at me and say, why are you still doing certain things that the kids are old enough to do themselves now? They're not 4 anymore. And my honest answer, because I've always done it. It didn't even dawn on me that they were not old enough to take over that task themselves. The autopilot was so deeply programmed, that day-to-day just habit, that I was doing the task without even consciously choosing to do it anymore. A perfect example of this is dinner. I used to always cook 2 meals because, a lot of autistic kids are texture eaters or smell eaters. They have certain things that they don't like. And I've never been you eat what I make you or you get nothing. So I would always cook 1 meal for us and something separate for them. Usually it was nuggets and whatever. My husband looked at me one day and he said, you do realize that they're teenagers now. And they're old enough to know how to use the air fryer and the stove with certain things. Like, if they don't want to eat what you cook, they can make something for themselves. There's plenty of food in the house. And it was something really simple. And I didn't even realize it. I was just cooking 2 meals. So why don't we talk about it? Because it doesn't feel dramatic enough to name. Like we'll come across as a demanding diva. Or, we don't want to seem weak. We don't want to burden the people we care about. Because, they're carrying stuff too. And sometimes we just don't have the words for it. It's just a feeling of always being slightly behind, slightly underwater, slightly more tired than the day seems to explain. And that's the crazy thing about invisible weight. It doesn't arrive in one moment. It accumulates. Kind of like crochet, stitch by stitch. For those who don't crochet, it's 1 drop in a bucket at a time. 1 small thing added here, 1 small, 1 more responsibility quietly absorbed over there, until one day you look down and the bucket is overfilled and the water is all over the floor. And usually the water is the combination of the drops and, let's be honest, tears. All right, coffee crew, welcome back to part 2 of the 2-day baking disaster. Or Stephanie made baking decisions she shouldn't have while tired. Quick recap for anyone who is just now joining us. Day 1, I made 3 loaves of bread while exhausted, left the 3rd one in the oven while I was showering, and ended up with what will always be known as the bread brick. A dense, flat, everything bagel seasoned brick, to which I dropped on the stove, threw up my hands, and went to bed. Now, day 2. I have not fully learned my lesson. Because why do that when chaos gives me a steady stream of content to bring you? And I am the queen of let's do it all at the same time so we don't have to do it tomorrow. There's always a 50-50 chance I'm going to have to redo it anyway. This 2-day bread disaster is a perfect example of that. Now, I am what I could best describe as rest adjacent. I'm not rested. I'm kind of like next to it. Like me and rest are not friends. We see each other, we do the hello nod of acquaintanceship at best. Well, so I still need to make bread. I'm going to make it anyway. And this time I'm just going to make 2 loaves because 1 loaf is efficient and 2 loaves is practical. And apparently I'm a person who makes these distinctions when I'm not fully recovered from the previous day's disaster. Told you I wouldn't learn my lesson. First loaf comes out perfect because of course it does. It wouldn't be chaos if it doesn't lull you into this false sense of safety first. Second loaf, I decided I'm going to do another everything bagel situation for me and my husband. I am, at this point, even briefly considering adding a 3rd loaf. Why not? We're on a roll. Everything's going. Everything's coming out great. My brain has convinced me that we got this. I just apparently love punishment, I guess. So my husband arrives home while I'm waiting for the 2nd loaf to ding, looks at me and says, "Babe, you look exhausted. Just finish this loaf and go to bed." And I felt it. It's like you get that moment you get the permission that you didn't need, but you absolutely did at the same time because you were never going to do it yourself. So I looked at him and I say, "You know what? You're right. Hey, I can kind of admit when I'm wrong. Sometimes." I glance at the bread maker. There's 3 minutes left. I tell him, "All right, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and pull it out early. 3 minutes won't hurt it." I put my hand on the lid and immediately know something's wrong. Like my brain is throwing code red alerts. Lights are flashing, loud noises are going off. It's warm. Which I know sounds fine in most cases. Bread maker, warm, makes sense. Except for the fact that I use the bread maker exclusively for the dough portion. So I throw the ingredients in the bread maker. It does all the kneading and the resting. I don't have to think about it. It dings. I pull the dough out. And then I just have to, shape it, bake it. Shape it, let it rise, and bake it in the oven. Because I prefer the shape of what I make instead of the pan shaped. Not just that, there's also the paddle at the bottom. So you end up with like a big hole. That was a lot to say this. The dough setting does not get hot. Like that. Warm, yes. Hot, no. I look at the screen. Now, the dough setting, because you got to click through the menu, is 7. And I know this without even looking, because that's how often I use the dough setting. But the screen doesn't say 7. It says 9. Yeah. 9 is cake. In my trying to do too much brain, I had hit the button a couple extra times without quite noticing. So I was not making bread. No, I was making cake. And everything bagel flavored cake, which does not even sound appealing in the slightest, let alone edible. So I open it. Again, hot. Have to grab an oven mitt. At least I remember to do that. Pull the pan out. And confirmed what I already knew. I had a dense block of bread cake hybrid. It had basically mixed it, but there was no rising, no kneading, no nothing. Just a thick, heavy, seasoned slab of what used to be my ambition and my sanity. I announced this loudly with, "Are you fucking kidding me?" So my husband, bless his heart, he tried to be helpful. He really did. He said, "It probably tastes fine. I'll just use it." And he did. I'll give him that. He used it for his lunch. And then after some actual rest, like, don't get me wrong, me and rest are still not friends. But at this point, we're at least trying. And after I got some more actual bed breaked, I just gave up on the everything bagel seasoning. I told him he could throw it out. And he did not hesitate. But he does get a shiny gold medal for powering through so that I could remove this imaginary pressure I thought I had. So there you have it. 2 days, 2 accidental creations, 1 brick, 1 cake-ish, both made while trying to carry too much and do too many things at once especially while tired. The bread maker didn't make cake because it wanted to. It made cake because I wasn't paying attention. And, sometimes you just need your husband to power through the bread cake. So you can pause for a moment. So if the load is too heavy, why don't we put it down? Because it's not that simple. It's never that simple. And it's worth taking a look at the reasons, because most of us have been carrying the reasons right alongside with everything else. First is the identity trap. When being the strong one becomes not just what you do, but who you are. When everything starts falling apart, you become the person who holds it together. The one that everybody calls when they're panicking. The one who figures it out. Because honestly, you were usually never given a choice either way. And sometimes it becomes our identity because we were handed it when we were too young to even know what it was we were being handed. That identity can feel like a compliment, up until the point it becomes a cage. They trust me to handle it, to know what to do, to be the leader. But now if you stop being that person for a week, hell, even for a day, who are you? What gives your life worth? And more importantly, what happens to everyone you care for who's currently counting on that version of you? And that brings us to the fear underneath it. If I stop, will everything fall apart? Will people be disappointed? Will they be mad? Will they still love me? Will they care for me? And this is my personal favorite my brain goes to every time. In the end, will it create even more work that I'm going to have to go back and fix it? Somehow we get this idea that we're the only ones who can do it. So we have to do it all, every time, indefinitely. There's no backup. There is no substitute. It has to be us. It's a solo race, not a team marathon. That belief is usually more fear than fact. Because fear does not always require fact to take up space. And in this situation, I'm going to borrow my favorite saying from my old therapist. It's not a reliable source of information. Not in this situation. Sometimes fear can save your life. Sometimes it lies to you. The challenge is knowing which one it is at the time. And then we have everyone else's favorite. Guilt. Guilt's that cake that everybody gets served and no one actually wants to eat it. Like everything bagel flavored. The guilt of needing help when someone else has it harder somewhere else. And we've talked about this before. And it bears repeating. More than one thing can be true at once. Someone can have it harder than you, and you can still have it hard. You can still be carrying too much. It's not a competition. This is not a WWE match where the winner gets the belt of permission to take a break. The person who has it worse does not mean that your load isn't heavy. It just means that they also have a heavy load. Perfectionism is another invisible weight, dressed up in pretty wrapping to hide the nasty mold underneath. It's the standard that you hold yourself to that you don't hold anyone else to. Nobody in this life is perfect, not a single one. And yet we have decided, for some reason, we are personally the exemption to the rule. If we fail, if we forget something, if we make the everything bagel cake instead of bread, we are the worst person on earth. How dare we pretend to know what we're doing? We extend grace to everyone around us and then turn around and hold ourselves to this impossible standard. That gap is exhausting to maintain. It's also an illusion you're never going to achieve. And this ties into the cultural messaging because it does not help. With the fakeness of social media, especially with parents who are just trying not to raise assholes, or caregivers of kids, parents, anyone who needs you. We've been told in 1,000 different ways, directly and indirectly, that to need help is to fail at being strong. That strength looks like doing it all without a complaint. That asking for support is a burden that you're placing on someone else, and how dare you? That habit needs to be unlearned on purpose because it's not going to unlearn itself. And what does white knuckling through actually cost you over time? I mean, your health, for one. Your joy is a huge thing it robs you of. Your ability to be present for the people you're holding everything together for. The irony of caring everything so the people you love are okay is that it slowly makes you less okay for them. And this took me a long time to learn. My kids don't want me perfect. My husband doesn't want me perfect or overloaded. They just want me present. And it also costs you efficiency. You know, odds are you're going to have to redo it because you messed it up. It's kind of how you end up throwing bread out 2 days in a row. All right, coffee crew, Brews News time. We always date and timestamp these. It is now May 6th, 2026 at 6:16 a.m. Got a couple stories for you this week. Story one is an Epstein update. Pam Bondi has agreed on an April 29th to testify before the House Oversight Committee. Now, I want to make sure I point out this distinction. She is not sitting for a deposition. She's going in for an interview. Why does that matter? Well, see, a deposition, you swear under oath to tell the truth. An interview, don't do that. Now, it is still illegal to lie to Congress, but it says something about her accountability, the fact that she's not willing to go under oath. After the April 14th no-show and the DOJ's argument the subpoena should no longer be applied because she left the office, she agreed. Massey and Kahn's position was the subpoena was issued to her by name, not the office. Right when they filed contempt charges, 45 minutes later, the new date came up. So it's not like it was extremely voluntary. But I'll keep you updated if there's anything worthwhile that comes out of it. That's pretty much all I have for Epstein. Story two, Supreme Court and voting rights. This dropped on Wednesday, April 30th, and it's already having real world consequences. So I want to make sure, especially because the primaries just passed, well, for me in Ohio, I want to make sure the coffee crew has the facts. So the Supreme Court's conservative majority issued a ruling that severely limits the Voting Rights Act, especially the provisions in it that has been used to guarantee majority-minority congressional districts in a state where a significant populations of the voters are of color. Justice Alito wrote in the majority opinion that allowing race to play any part in government decision-making is a departure from the constitutional rule. Kagan countered that with a forceful dissent, stating that the plaintiffs alleging schemes to dilute the representation of the minority voters will now be nearly impossible to succeed in court. Senator Cory Booker called it another evisceration of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. So what happened the same day the ruling dropped? Well, Republican-controlled Florida House passed an aggressively gerrymandered map within the hour of the decision. And Louisiana actually suspended its House primaries that were already underway. People had already voted with their absentee ballot. Early voting was set to begin, and the governor just stopped them. From my understanding, people were going to the polls and they were being told that their vote was not going to count. According to Louisiana Rep. Chloe Phillips, the Democrat whose district is at the center of this. Tennessee Republicans are being pressured to call a special session to remove seats. The state only has one congressional Democrat seat, and they want to remove that. Arkansas, Mississippi, Missouri, and South Carolina are all watching their maps. The human impact here is straightforward. The ruling makes it significantly easier for Republican-controlled states to redraw congressional maps in a way that dilute the voting power of Black and Latino communities, which is what Section 2 was trying to stop. So Democrats estimate it could result in Republicans picking up as many as 19 additional House seats. Now, the full impact won't be felt until 2028, when states have a full election cycle to act. But this scramble to redraw the lines before the midterms is already happening. People who are already voting are being told their vote in certain races won't be counted because the maps are being redrawn. And it's worth stating this out loud. Putting something down is not the same as dropping it. And I want to be clear about that, because this fear of dropping it is kind of what we talked about earlier, where it holds us past the point where we should. Think of it like a glass plate. If you set it down gently, it's fine. But if you drop it on the floor and it shatters everywhere, it's not. Our brain tells us that if we're not the ones holding it, it's still going to shatter, forgetting that putting it down gently is an option. Putting something down means choosing to redistribute the weight, asking someone else to take a piece of it. Set the plate down when your hands are full. Ask someone else, hey, can you put that away? But here's where we have to address the guilt that comes up immediately. We worry that by handing something off, we're giving that person too much, that their hands are already too full, forgetting the fact that that person has the right to say no. You're not responsible for managing their capacity. They're responsible for that. So if it's too much, they can tell you, and then you can work together to figure out a better way to split the load. You can ask and then actually listen to the answer. You don't have to carry it alone just because you've always carried it alone. And that's a habit we got to force ourselves out of. We also need to normalize asking for help before you're desperate for it. And also letting something be imperfect and surviving that. Sometimes we just need to get it done. If it's not perfect or the way we do it, who cares? It's done. I have lines in my basement so I can hang up my clothes to dry. It used to drive me insane that my husband didn't hang them up the same way that I did, or my kids didn't hang them up the same way that I did. And I had to tell myself, who cares? The clothes got hung up and they dried. That's what matters. If it's your husband cooking dinner and it's cooked, the edges are a little burnt, who cares? I prefer burnt anyway. I like crunchy. We can also say no to the new thing before saying yes out of habit. Telling someone in your house what you're actually managing, so they can see the full picture instead of just maybe the task that they notice. Your husband sees the sliced bread, not always the effort that goes into making it. Well, at least until he has to eat cake bread. Then he'll probably notice. Or a project that's too big for one sitting. It needs to be broken into stages and not carried all at once. While I have your attention, here is your reminder that, December 1st is not a good time to decide to make everybody's Christmas presents. It's May. Here's a little heads up if you want to get started now to give yourself plenty of time. Stop trying to make everything as fast as possible because there's a deadline that you didn't think about till it was already sitting on your chest. Doing that removes the joy from your own craft, by the way. The thing you did to relax is now a source of stress. And I only know this because I've done it. You make a commitment and optimism. So here's your permission. Make your homemade list shorter. Start planning in January. Start crocheting in May. Break it into stages. Give yourself time. The joy comes back when the pressure goes out. When you start feeling dread at the thought of picking it up, it's a clue you've burned yourself out. You need to readjust a little bit to get your love for it back. You also need to identify the one thing that you're carrying that's probably not even yours to carry. This is especially true for those of us who have generational trauma and family pattern trauma. The weight that was handed to you before you were old enough to question whether you actually wanted it. You are not responsible for other people's emotions, their choices, their life management. You can help if you have the actual capacity to, but you are allowed to say no when you don't. Both of those are complete sentences. If they don't like it, that's a them problem. Let them look at where that came from. Who handed that to them? But for you, that bag don't live here no more. And again, you don't need to earn relief. Rest is not something you get after you finish everything. It's not a prize after you complete a certain amount of tasks. There's no punch card in life, by 10, the 11th one's free. That's not how it works. Everything is never finished. So rest is something you have to build in on purpose, not something you collapse into when you got nothing left. So what becomes possible when you're not exhausted from holding everything together? Well, you actually get to be present for the people you love, for the things you enjoy, for yourself. You snap at people less, cry less, throw judgmental frogs across the room less. The version of you that's not running on empty has more patience, more creativity, and more capacity for joy. That version of you is still in there. She just kind of needs you to put something down first. All right, coffee crew. It's time for Several Happens. Take a deep breath. This one was a little heavy. And I like to ground you out before you send you back out into life's chaos. This week's card is the Ten of Wands. So close your eyes if you can and let the energy take you away. The scene is an old blacksmith's workshop. Light is pouring through a small window. It's catching sparks from the rising forge. The room is warm, worn in. This is a place where the work happens, where things are made, where something useful is being crafted out of raw material. And it is done with precision, focus, and patience. The blacksmith stands at his workstation. He's got on thick gloves, a brown leather apron, and a hood pulled low to protect him from the sparks. His white beard glows in the firelight as he studies the tool he's crafting. He's turning it in his hands, examining it carefully, searching for the placement that will give it strength without adding unnecessary weight or stopping it from its intended purpose. His metal tools hanging at his side, ready for when he needs them. Fiery ash scatters around his boot-covered feet. It's not that he can't make anything. He clearly can. His face, his expression show the years he's been honing his craft. It's that he's focused on using what he already has to create exactly what he needs, without overburdening the tool. He is choosing with intention, not adding for the sake of adding, looking at the weight in his hands and asking, where is it necessary for function? Upright, the Ten of Wands is a card of caring too much. It shows up when you have taken on more than is sustainable, when you are weighed down by responsibilities, obligations, and the accumulated weight of saying yes too many times, or being that person that everyone else relies on. This card does not judge the load. It's just naming it. You're carrying a lot, more than you need to be. And the invitation is to look at what you're holding and ask what actually needs to be added, what actually needs to stay in your hands. Also, what are you trying to add that takes away from it being able to function? Reversed, the Ten of Wands is a moment of release. It shows up when you're finally ready to put something down, to delegate, to ask for help, to let go of a burden that was never really yours to carry. The reversal is not failure, it is wisdom. A knowledge of knowing what's needed and what's not. It is the blacksmith looking at the tool in his hands and deciding to set it on the bench. You get to put something down, not drop it, not abandon it, just set it down with intention and breath. So take a moment to see, what can you put down? What can you hand off to lighten your load, to make yourself function more and not less? All right, coffee crew. Coffee's getting cold. Let's wrap this up. Strong enough to carry does not mean you have to. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. I can drink 2 pots of coffee. It definitely doesn't mean that I should. And my stomach will revolt if I do. I just want to give you a quick look ahead. We're in the back half of my season 2. And it kind of works out perfectly. I like to wrap these up at around 20 episodes. And that is right when we're going to finish the Suit of Wands. So it's going to be a perfect stopping point. And you can kind of see where we're going. And we can look forward it together. After that, I'll take a break. Not quite sure how long yet. I'll see what life's throwing at me for the summer. And I just want to say this to you guys. April was something else. The love and support that you guys showed up last month. Downloads, I broke records twice. New listeners, people finding us and sticking around more. More countries are tuning in and sharing. Just know I am seeing every single one of you, and I am so grateful. Our 0 download streak is alive, and you guys just keep blowing my mind and warming my heart. So keep fielding. Look at that, fielding. Keep feeding that algorithm monster, because something is clearly working. You can find us on Instagram at coffee.crochet.conversation, Facebook by searching the show name. Everything's in my link tree. Like, rate, share, subscribe, leave a review, all, every one of those things that helps us continue to grow. And as always, coffee crew, keep your stitches sassy, your coffee strong, and your spirit grounded.